The last thing I saw were the headlights of a car that had swerved out of the oncoming lane. There was a flash of chrome, a scream of brakes I wasn't sure was mine. And then the impact. Metal folding, glass exploding, the world tilting sideways. Then nothing. For a strange, weightless moment, I felt like I was floating, suspended in a dark ocean. No pain, no body, no sense of time. Just a deep, black silence. "I'm coming, Sarah," I thought. "My dear, I'm finally coming to you." I saw my wife's face the way it had been before the cancer. Laughing eyes, that little streak of gray in her hair she refused to dye, hands still warm when they held mine. I felt relieved. I'd been alone for 7 years since she passed. I'd done my best. Mowed the lawn, paid the bills, went to church on Sundays. But the house had never stopped echoing. "It's all right," I told her, wherever she was. "I've had enough. I'm ready." But I didn't go to her. I got stuck. I didn't know it then, but my heart had stopped twice on the operating table. They'd brought me back. Machines had taken over where my broken body couldn't. And my mind, instead of moving on, got trapped between life and death like a fly in amber. A coma, they called it. People think a coma is just sleep, blackout, nothingness. I used to think that too. I don't anymore, because I heard everything. At first it was sounds with no anchors, beeping, a low, mechanical whir, something rhythmic, steady, that I later understood was the ventilator breathing for me. I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't move even a finger. I was a man buried alive in his own skin. Time was a strange animal. Minutes stretched into hours, then hours collapsed into seconds. Voices came and went like waves on a shore. 90 minutes in surgery. We stabilized him, but the brain took a hit. Pupils reactive. That's something. We'll give him time. I floated through it, listening without knowing who they were. Then I heard a voice I knew. "Dad?" My son. Greg's voice used to make me proud. He'd been a loud kid. Baseball games, broken windows, laughter that filled a room. Now there was an edge to it. Tight. Frayed. "Sir, if you could step back from the bed." "I don't care about the bed," Greg snapped. "You don't understand. All the accounts are in his name. Everything is frozen. I have payroll. I have suppliers. I have the IRS breathing down my neck." My son, I thought. My boy. He's scared. He's worried about me. I clung to that hope like a drowning man to driftwood. "Mr. Walker," a calmer voice said, the doctor, I guessed, "your father is in critical condition. We don't know yet how much brain function he's retained. Right now our priority is, well, my priority is that my company doesn't get shut down." Greg's chair scraped hard against the floor. He could have put it under my name, but no. My father insists everything stays with him. Better for taxes, son. Remember that? Now he's lying here like this, and I can't touch a single cent. I tried to move my hand, to squeeze his, to tell him it was all right, that we'd figure something out like we always had. My arm may as well have been concrete. "I did what the accountant said," I protested in my head. "You asked me to sign the papers, remember? You said you needed help getting the business off the ground. You said you trusted me." I'd built Walker Heating and Cooling from a rusty pickup and a toolbox when I was 32. 26 years of crawling in attics and basements, of busted knuckles and long days, had turned into 3 vans, 8 technicians, and a comfortable life. When my wife was dying, I'd told myself I was leaving something solid for the kids. Greg said, "We registered under his name for tax optimization, Dad. Don't worry, you won't have to do anything. Just sign." I hadn't understood the details. I knew ductwork and compressors, not corporate structures. So I signed where the lawyer told me. Now I lay in a bed, tubes in my veins, and my son's first concern wasn't whether I'd live. It was his money. "You could apply for temporary control," the doctor said gently. "There are legal avenues, but they take time." "I don't have time," Greg barked. "I have 15 guys who need paychecks on Friday. You expect me to tell them, 'Sorry, my dad decided to take a nap in the ICU'?" The word stung more than I'd admit to myself. I waited for him to catch himself, to say something like, "I'm sorry, I'm just upset." Instead, I heard his chair scrape again as he stood. "Do something," he hissed. "Give him whatever drug you've got to wake him up. Shock him. Shake him. I don't care. I can't sit here for weeks while his brain plays hide-and-seek." "Mr. Walker." And then my son said the sentence that lodged itself in my chest like shrapnel. "It would have been better if you had died." Silence spread across the room like spilled ink. My heart didn't stop this time, but something close to it did. The doctor didn't answer right away. Machines beeped, indifferent. Footsteps shifted. "Greg," another voice whispered, my daughter. "Stop. Don't say things like that." Lisa, my little girl. She'd always been the soft one, the peacemaker. In my mind, she still had pigtails and scraped knees. "I mean it," Greg said, lower but no less vicious. If he had just died at the scene, at least the insurance would have paid out. The business could have been transferred. This limbo? This is the worst possible thing that could have happened. "That's your father," Lisa said. "That's the man who signed away control of my entire company because some accountant said it was a good idea," Greg shot back. "Now everything is frozen. I can't pay the credit lines, can't access the main account, can't even move the business savings. He put all of it under his name like he wanted to keep me on a leash." I wanted to shout. "I did it for you. I trusted you. I thought we were partners." But I had no voice, just the echo of his words. "It would have been better if you had died." There are moments that split a life into before and after. That sentence was mine. After about a week, judging by visiting schedules and the rhythm of shift changes, I realized something else. The people in that room thought I was gone. Doctors spoke over my bed, discussing me like I was a broken appliance. Nurses sighed, complaining about their own lives. My children forgot how to be careful with their words, and I heard every single one. At first, I still tried to make excuses for them. Stress, fear, grief. But as days folded into weeks, it became clear that my coma had just stripped away whatever politeness veneer they'd been wearing. "Any changes?" Lisa asked on one visit, the sound of her heels sharp on tile. A nurse, Carla, I'd learned, replied, "Not much yet. Some reflex responses. His vitals are holding steady. That's a good sign." "So he's just lying there?" Lisa said. I felt her hand on mine, light and unfamiliar. The last time she'd really held my hand was at her wedding. Her grip then had been full of hope. "Hi, Daddy," she said now. "It's me, Lisa. I brought you some things. Pictures. Jamie drew you something." My heart lifted. My grandson. Jamie was 10, all freckles and baseball caps and questions. I waited for the shuffle of smaller sneakers, the whisper of a child trying to be quiet in a place that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Nothing. "I'll just tape these up here," Lisa murmured, fussing with the wall. "Your son didn't want to come?" Carla asked, polite but curious. "Oh, he was with his other grandparents today," Lisa said quickly. "And school, you know. He's busy." Busy. I clung to the idea that he'd come another day, that I'd hear his high, nervous voice, that he'd whisper, "Grandpa?" and I'd somehow let him know I was still there. That day never came. What did come was a man's voice I didn't recognize at first, low, confident, laughing in a way that made my teeth clench, even though I couldn't physically move my jaw. "Lock the door," Lisa said, her tone different, breathier, nervous in a way I hadn't heard since she was a teenager sneaking in past curfew. "Relax," the man replied. "I told you, nobody checks on him this late. Besides, he's out. Vegetables don't tell secrets." Vegetable. That was their word for me now. The click of the door lock echoed through the room. The man came closer. I recognized his voice then. Kyle, one of the managers at the insurance agency where Lisa worked. He'd been to Thanksgiving once, all teeth and firm handshake. "I still feel weird about this," Lisa whispered. "He's my dad." "And he's asleep," Kyle murmured, his footsteps circling toward my bed. "He's not waking up, babe. The doctor said most people in this kind of coma either stay that way or, you know." His hand, whoever it was, patted my shoulder, almost fond. "If anything, we're doing him a favor by keeping him company." They laughed. Soft at first, then bolder. I wanted to explode out of that bed, to rip the tubes from my arms, to grab the man by his collar and throw him out into the hallway, to look my daughter in the eyes and ask her what kind of person used her father's hospital room as a cheap motel. Instead, I lay there while they moved around the room, while whispers turned to muffled noises I tried not to interpret. "She told her husband only family could visit," I heard Kyle say at one point, amused. "So technically you're introducing me to your father. That's what this is." "Don't joke," Lisa hissed, but she laughed anyway. "If David ever found out—" David. My son-in-law. I liked David. He was quiet, hard-working, a high school history teacher who wore cheap ties and still stood up whenever my late wife walked into the room. He had this gentle way of explaining things to Jamie that reminded me of why I used to love teaching my techs. He had no idea his wife was using her father's coma as cover for an affair. He had no idea she was lying to him every time she said, "The hospital only allows close family, honey. It wouldn't be right to drag you there after your long day." I felt more sorry for him than for myself. Sometimes the nurses came in during those visits. Kyle would slip into the corner behind the curtain, silent as a shadow, while Lisa put on her grieving daughter face. "Anything new?" she'd ask, layering her voice with just enough tremble to sound sincere. "Some eye movement," the night nurse said once. "That could be a positive sign." I remember the way Lisa's fingers tightened around my wrist. "How positive?" she asked. "Well, it means his brain is still responding," the nurse murmured. "Sometimes patients start with small movements, fingers, eyelids, and work their way back." Lisa's hand went slack. "Oh," she said flatly. "You can talk to him," the nurse offered kindly. "Sometimes they respond to familiar voices. Even if he can't answer, it can help." When the nurse left, Lisa leaned down so close I could feel her breath on my face. "Daddy," she whispered, "if you're in there, I hope you're not suffering. I hope you make a decision soon, for everyone's sake." She kissed my forehead, then unlocked the door and let her lover out. My son didn't bother with pretending to be gentle. He stormed in every other day, footsteps heavy with frustration. He argued with doctors. He shouted at nurses. He spoke to me like I was a faulty machine that refused to turn on. One afternoon his voice came in hot and jagged. "You're telling me the earliest court date is in 6 weeks?" "Mr. Walker," someone replied. "That's standard for this kind of petition." "But I need control now," Greg snarled. "He's just lying there. The business is running on fumes. Lines of credit, maxed. Savings, locked. Everything is under his stupid, stubborn name." "Your father's injuries." "Don't say your father like that," Greg snapped. "You don't know him. He's always been controlling. Even now he's managing to ruin my life by doing nothing." Ruin his life. I'd co-signed his first car loan at 19. Paid for trade school when he decided college wasn't for him. Gave him a job at the company before he was qualified, then patiently taught him the work. When my knees started complaining at 68, I'd told him it was time he took the reins more fully. He wanted more control, more responsibility. I thought giving him the business under my legal umbrella was a way to let him fly without telling him I was still holding the safety net. Now, apparently, the net was the problem. The next day he came back, calmer. I heard the scrape of a metal chair as he sat, the sigh he gave before speaking. "Hey, Dad?" He had never sounded more like a stranger. "So here's how this is going to go," he said. "The lawyers say if you're technically incapacitated, I can apply to be your guardian. But that'll take time. Time I don't have. So I need you to do something for me." He paused, and for one crazed moment I thought, if he asks me to wake up, I will. I'll claw my way out of this pit. I'll tear down whatever wall is between my brain and my body. "I need you to die," he whispered. My internal world went still. He laughed suddenly, a short, bitter sound. "I'm not saying I want you dead," he corrected, as if that made a difference. "I'm saying if you had just gone at the scene, the insurance would be processed by now. Your will would be executed. The business would be legally mine. Right now, everything is stuck because you wouldn't let go sooner." The last time I'd heard that much resentment from him was when he was 16 and I'd refused to buy him a sports car. "You could still do the right thing," he muttered. "If there's anything left in that stubborn brain of yours, if you care about what happens to us, you'll let go. The machines will keep you here forever, but you and I both know you'd hate this." Did I want this? No. Did I want to abandon my grandson to these people? To a father who could wish his own dad dead because of frozen bank accounts? Also no. So I held on. Through the endless nights, through my son's ranting, through my daughter's whispered lies and stolen kisses, through the prayers of strangers who touched my hand and said things like, "Lord, if it is your will." One voice kept me tethered. My son-in-law. David came late, usually after school when the halls were quieter. His steps were cautious, hesitant, as if he didn't want to disturb the air. "Hello, Mr. Walker," he'd say softly. "It's David." He always called me Mr. Walker, even after 10 years in the family. I'd told him to use my first name more times than I could count. He never did. He'd sit, rustling papers as he graded quizzes next to my bed. "You were right, you know," he'd say sometimes, as if we were continuing an old conversation. "They still don't know basic geography. I had a kid today who thought Iowa was a city." He chuckled, then fell quiet. I brought Jamie yesterday, but Lisa said they weren't letting kids in. Something about infection risk. So he drew you another picture instead." He taped it to the wall with the others, narrating as he did. "This one's you on a fishing dock. He said you're holding the biggest fish anyone's ever seen. Every time we drive past the lake, he says, 'That's where Grandpa's going to take me when he gets better.' That sentence became my North Star. When he gets better. Not if." David talked to me about ordinary things, Jamie's baseball games, the new principal at his school, the broken dryer they still hadn't replaced, bills, worries, small victories, how Jamie had gotten an A in math, how he'd finally learned to ride a bike without training wheels. Sometimes I heard strain in his voice when he mentioned Lisa. "She's tired," he'd say, "between work and the hospital. I try to help, but she shuts me out. I know she's scared of losing you." He had no idea what she was really terrified of losing. Her convenient meeting place. Once, late at night, I heard him cry quietly. He thought I was sleeping because everyone thought I was always sleeping. "I'm trying, sir," he whispered. "I'm trying to be the man you'd want for your daughter and grandson. I just don't know if I'm enough." If I could have, I would have reached out and squeezed his shoulder. Instead, all I could do was burn everything I heard into my memory. 4 weeks after the accident, something changed. I felt it before anyone saw it. Not in a dramatic way. No bright light, no voice from above. Just weight. A sense that my body had edges again. I became aware of my right hand. It felt like it was buried under wet cement, but I felt it. I tried to move my index finger. The first attempt was like trying to bench press a truck. Nothing. The second, maybe a breeze through a wheat field. Meaningless, invisible. On the third try, I felt the smallest twitch. Carla was checking my IV line. "Come on, Mr. Walker," she murmured, half to herself. "Give me something." I focused on her voice, on the feel of my hand, on the memory of holding a wrench, of signing my name, of patting Jamie's hair after a home run. Move. My finger jerked, barely, just enough to scrape against the sheet. Carla froze. "Sir?" she whispered. "Tom?" She grabbed my hand, eyes glued to it. "Do that again," she urged. I tried. The effort sent a wave of exhaustion rolling through me, but I gritted my mental teeth and pushed. The finger trembled. She yelled for the doctor, for anyone, really. The room filled fast, lights brightened. Hands touched my shoulders, my face. "Tom, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand." I tried. God, I tried. My hand didn't cooperate, not really, but my finger curled a fraction. "Reflex?" someone asked. "No," another voice said. "He responded to a command. That's deliberate." The world rushed in after that. Tests, lights, questions I couldn't answer yet. They lowered the sedation. The sounds grew sharper. The pain came back too, but even that felt like a blessing. It meant I was still here. A day later, I could move 2 fingers, then my whole hand, eyelids. The first time I opened my eyes, the light speared through my skull like a knife. Everything was out of focus. Colors, shapes, white coats. I shut them again. "Easy," a voice soothed. "Don't force it." I practiced in small bursts, 5 seconds at a time, 10. My vision cleared slowly. I recognized the ceiling tiles, the IV pole, the machines that had been singing to me for weeks, and faces. Carla's worried smile, the neurologist's concentrated frown. My son's expression caught somewhere between relief and calculation. "Well, look who decided to join us," Greg said the first time he realized my eyes were tracking him. "Guess you finally remembered you have a family, huh?" The doctor shot him a warning look. "Mr. Walker," he said to me, "can you understand me? Blink once for yes, twice for no." My eyelids felt heavy as cinder blocks, but I blinked once. Relief washed through the room. There was clapping. I heard someone laugh. It should have been a happy moment. All I could think of was the times my son had stood over this bed and wished me dead. As my body slowly cooperated more, they moved me out of ICU. Physical therapy started, a daily ritual of humiliation and tiny triumphs. "Let's see if we can sit up today," the therapist would say cheerfully, as if my ribs weren't made of broken glass. I groaned my way through it. Every muscle screamed, but every inch I gained felt like a brick laid in the foundation of something new. They told me I'd been out for 4 weeks. They assumed I remembered none of it. So when they asked during those first lucid days, "Do you recall anything from the accident? Or from the time after?" I said, voice raspy and weak, "No, just darkness." It was the first lie I'd told a doctor in 72 years. I wasn't ready to show my cards. Not yet. The first time my family visited me when I was fully conscious, I felt like a spy behind enemy lines. Greg walked in with a bouquet he'd probably ordered online. Lisa clung to his arm. David followed a few steps behind, looking tired. There was no sign of Jamie. "Dad," Greg said brightly, as if we were all actors in a commercial. "Look at you, sitting up. You gave us a scare." I took my time looking at his face. Sunken eyes, deeper worry lines. The accident had aged him, but there was something else there too, something sharp and hungry. "Hi, son," I whispered. My throat still felt like sandpaper. Lisa stepped closer, tears already shining. "Daddy," she said, "I was so scared." A memory flashed, her breathless laughter, the click of the door lock, her whisper to Kyle, "Vegetables don't tell secrets." I looked at her the way I used to look at malfunctioning units, calmly, thoughtfully, taking inventory of every weakness. I turned my eyes to David. "Hey," I croaked. He gave me that small, earnest smile I'd always liked. "It's good to see you, sir," he said. "You had us all worried." There it was again. Worried. I didn't trust that word anymore. "How's Jamie?" I asked, forcing the air through my raw vocal cords. Lisa stiffened slightly. "He's fine," she said. "School. He wanted to come, but kids, germs." "The hospital's policy allows children now," David said quietly. "They changed it last week." Lisa shot him a quick, silencing glance. He shut his mouth. That was when I realized something else. The betrayal wasn't just against me. It was against him, too. The doctors warned me about confusion and memory gaps. They spoke of emotional volatility after a trauma. I used their warnings as cover. Sometimes I let my gaze drift, as if I were somewhere else. Sometimes I forgot conversations from the day before. Sometimes I'd ask the same question twice, then watch closely who grew impatient first. "Dad," Greg said on day 3 of my official recovery, "just while you're still here in the hospital, I need to handle some things for you. Business stuff." He pulled a folder from his briefcase and slid it onto my tray. "Just some routine paperwork," he said. "Power of attorney forms, banking authorizations, so I can keep things afloat while you focus on getting better. You don't want to worry about all that, do you?" What I wanted was to reach across the bed and slap him. But my hand still shook when I lifted a cup of water, so I blinked slowly instead. "Maybe later," I said. "Head foggy." "The sooner we do this, the better," Greg said, a hint of pressure creeping into his voice. I had to dip into my personal savings to cover the last payroll. The guys are getting nervous. Suppliers are calling. "Maybe tomorrow," I rasped. "I brought a pen." "Tomorrow." He swallowed his frustration and forced a smile. "Sure, Dad," he said. "We'll talk tomorrow." Tomorrow I made sure he came near the end of visiting hours, when I knew the night nurse who liked to chat would be there. "Oh, those?" she said, nodding toward the papers he'd spread on my blanket. "You know, Mr. Walker, you should have the hospital social worker go over any legal documents with you before you sign, just to make sure someone's advocating for your interests. It's standard after a brain injury." Greg's jaw tightened. He slid the forms back into the folder. "No rush," I murmured. His eyes flashed. I slept very well that night. Discharge day came like the end of a long prison sentence. They wheeled me out to the hospital entrance. The sky looked too bright. The air smelled like gasoline and spring. Greg had insisted on driving me home. "Lisa's got a thing with Jamie," he'd said. David, standing behind him, had looked like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. The ride was quiet for the first 10 minutes. I watched familiar streets blur by. Our town in Illinois hadn't changed much. Same gas station on the corner, same diner with the peeling sign. "You know, Dad," Greg said finally, fingers drumming on the steering wheel, "the business almost went under while you were sleeping." "Sorry," I said dryly. "Next time I'll schedule the car accident around your cash flow." He flinched. "I didn't mean it like that," he muttered, then gave a humorless laugh. "Okay, maybe I did. I'm just saying. I've been carrying a lot. Alone." "I thought you wanted to be the boss," I said. "I do," he shot back. "But I didn't want my hands tied behind my back. You set it up so that you're the only one the bank recognizes as owner. Everything I've built is technically yours. Do you know how that feels?" "If it's technically mine," I replied, "I guess I built it too." He didn't answer. The house felt both familiar and foreign when we got there. Sarah's wind chime still hung by the back door, tinkling in the breeze. The garden we'd planted had gone wild. There was mail piled on the hallway table. My daughter had stopped by a few times to check the house, she'd told the nurses. Judging by the dust, she hadn't checked much. Greg helped me to my chair, the one that still had a faint indentation where Sarah used to curl up with a book. "You'll need in-home care," he said briskly. "At least for a while. I'll see what's covered by insurance. In the meantime, I brought the papers." "Greg," I interrupted. "Sit." He hesitated, then sank onto the couch. All my life, I'd been the peacekeeper. The one who avoided big confrontations unless it was absolutely necessary. I'd seen enough shouting matches in customers' homes to know they never solved much. But there are things a man can only ignore for so long. "I remember," I said. He frowned. "Remember what?" "The hospital," I said. "The voices. What you said." He opened his mouth, closed it again. "The doctors told us you didn't." "They told you coma patients usually don't," I said. "They didn't say never." The color drained from his face. "Dad, I was upset. I said a lot of things I didn't mean. You scared us. You said it would have been better if I had died," I said calmly. "You said you needed me to die so you could have the business. You asked me to let go, so your accounts wouldn't be frozen." He shot to his feet. "You don't get it," he burst out. "You don't know what it was like trying to explain to 15 guys why their paychecks might bounce. Trying to juggle overdue invoices while you lay there, taking your sweet time deciding whether to live or die. I was drowning, and you were just lying there." "I was fighting," I snapped, louder than I'd managed in weeks. "Every second. For my life. For my grandson. For a chance to fix the mess I helped create." His jaw clenched. "What mess?" he demanded. "You handed me a company tied up in your name and then checked out. You think that's my mess?" "I trusted you," I said. My voice shook now, but not from weakness. From something sharper. "I trusted your word when you said my name on the papers was a formality. I trusted you to look out for the business, not just your own pockets." "What's that supposed to mean?" he scoffed. "I heard you," I said. "Talking about loans I didn't know we'd taken. Lines of credit the business didn't need. Personal expenses on the company card, and Lisa." His eyes flicked away at her name. "Stay out of Lisa's marriage," he muttered. "You don't know anything about—" "I know my daughter used my hospital room to meet her lover," I said flatly. "I know she lied to David and told him only family could visit. I know my grandson hasn't seen me once since the accident, and I know you were too busy cursing me to notice any of it." Silence. He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Maybe he hadn't. I'd always softened things for him, protected him from the worst consequences of his actions. That man was gone. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked finally, voice low. "What do you want?" I leaned back, letting the answer settle between us. "I want you to understand," I said, "that whatever happens next, I'm wide awake. No more coma. No more pretending not to hear." He swallowed hard. "I don't have time for this," he said brusquely. "We'll talk later. Just look over the forms." When he left, I sat alone in my quiet house, listening to the ticking clock and my own ragged breathing. Then I picked up the phone. The first person I called was an old friend, Mark Ellis, my accountant of 20 years. He'd retired to Arizona, but he still answered my calls. "Tom," he said, "you're supposed to be dead." "Not yet," I replied, "but apparently that's been inconvenient for some people." By the time I finished telling him everything, the line was silent for a long moment. "Well," Mark said dryly, "you always raise smart kids." "Smart isn't the word I'd use," I muttered. "Clever, then, and selfish. Never a good combination." He sighed. "All right. First things first. You're the legal owner of Walker Heating and Cooling, correct?" "As far as I know," I said. "Greg told me we registered under my name. He said it would be better for taxes. I just signed where they told me. I didn't think—" "You found out the hard way that signatures matter," Mark said. Paperwork has teeth. Listen carefully, Tom. If everything is really in your name, that means you have options. What kind of options? Do you still have your login for the business accounts? He asked. Online banking, corporate credit, all of it? I think so, I said slowly. Unless Greg changed them. Check, he said. Now, before he realizes you're back in the game. My fingers shook as I dug through the drawer where I kept all the things Sarah used to organize for me. Password cheat sheets, old tax returns, a worn leather notebook with scribbles in her neat handwriting. I had to sit down twice between the kitchen and the desk because my legs protested. But stubbornness is a powerful painkiller. When I finally logged into the bank portal, my stomach twisted. The numbers were not what they should have been. The savings account I'd built over a decade, our cushion for slow seasons, unexpected breakdowns, big equipment purchases, was down by more than half. The credit cards were nearly maxed. The line of credit, which we'd barely touched in years, had been drawn down aggressively in the last 12 months. Transfers, charges, payments to companies I didn't recognize. Mark, I said, heart pounding. He's been using the business like it's an ATM. I was afraid of that, he said quietly. We can dig into the details later. The immediate question is, do you want to save the business or your son from himself? I stared at the screen. Walker Heating and Cooling had been my life's work. I'd bled for it, broken bones for it, missed holidays for it. I'd dreamed of seeing Greg's name on the truck someday. But the coma had peeled away every illusion I'd had about my children. They didn't see the company as a legacy. They saw it as a machine that printed cash. As long as it churned out money, they were happy. The minute it stopped, I became expendable. What happens if the business collapses? I asked. Your technicians will have to find other jobs, Mark said bluntly. Some will land on their feet. Some won't. Suppliers will gnash their teeth. Your son will finally hit a wall he can't borrow his way through. And if I keep propping it up? I asked. Then you'll die someday, he said. And Greg will inherit a company he never learned to respect. He'll run it into the ground anyway, only it'll take longer, and he'll take more people down with him. The room felt smaller. What do you suggest? I asked. I suggest, he said slowly, that you remember every word your son said while he thought you were gone, and then act like a man who's heard the truth. That night, while my legs ached and my chest throbbed, I moved slowly, deliberately, through every online portal I could access. Where I could, I changed passwords. Where I couldn't, I downloaded statements. I printed things until the old home printer groaned. I stacked everything in neat piles. Then I called a lawyer. Her name was Rebecca Hayes. Mid-40s, sharp voice, sharper brain. She'd handled the paperwork when I bought a rental duplex a few years back. Sarah had liked her. You sound better than I expected, she said when I told her about the accident. How can I help? I want, I said, to make sure that everything I worked for doesn't become ammunition. Against who? Against my grandson, I said. Against my son-in-law. Against common sense. Take your pick. She came to my house 2 days later. Full disclosure, she said, as she set her briefcase on my kitchen table. I've handled some of your son's paperwork, too. I can't tell you details, that would breach confidentiality. But I can tell you this. I had a feeling I'd be seeing you sooner or later. We went through everything. The business registration, the bank accounts, the corporate documents, my will. Right now, she said, your will leaves the business to Greg and the house split between both kids. Some extra cash and trust for Jamie. No mention of David. Sarah and I wrote that before she got sick, I said. We assumed things. You assumed your children would be the people you thought they were, she said. That's a very human assumption. But a stupid one, I said. She didn't argue. So, she said, tapping her pen against the table, option 1. We do nothing. You return to the business. Try to repair the damage. Hope it's not too late, and hope your son learns gratitude. Option 2. We restructure. You pull the rug out from under him now, while you're still alive to take the heat. What does option 2 look like? I asked. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. It looks, she said, like you walking away with everything that is legally yours, and leaving your son with what he's actually earned. How much is that? I asked. She shrugged. From what I see here, debt and experience. For the first time since the accident, I laughed. It hurt my ribs, but it felt good. Over the next week, while my body learned to climb stairs again and my muscles screamed at every new demand, Rebecca and I worked. She set up new accounts, personal, separate, secure. She drafted amendments to my will, new trusts, fresh directives. She explained powers of attorney and medical proxies, documents I should have had in place years ago. You'll need witnesses, she said. People who can verify you understand what you're signing. Given your recent injury, we want everything bulletproof. She arranged for a notary to come to the house. We scheduled it for a day when I knew, from his habits, that Greg would be out on calls. The morning of the transfer, I logged into the business accounts one last time. My hand trembled slightly as I initiated the wire transfers. Savings, moved to my new personal account. Emergency funds, moved to a trust. Small distributions, earmarked for future legal fees and the tax man. Enough left to keep the business from flatlining on the spot, but no comfortable cushion for Greg to fall back on. When it was done, the numbers on the screen looked wrong, smaller. For a moment, guilt clawed at my throat. Then I remembered his voice over my bed, cold and impatient. It would have been better if you had died. I clicked confirm. The next day I called Greg and asked him to come over. He arrived with his tie loosened, eyes hollow with lack of sleep. This better be quick, he said, shrugging off his jacket. I've had calls backed up all morning. The guys need gas cards refilled. The part supplier started putting us on hold over the past due invoice, and I withdrew the company savings, I said. He stopped. What? I moved the funds, I repeated. The emergency cushion, the reserves. I transferred them to accounts in my name. His face drained of color, then flushed again so fast I thought he might pass out. You what? He choked. You can't do that. The accounts are in my name, I said. The business is legally mine. I can do whatever I want with its assets. Just like you did, apparently, for the past few years. I was investing, he snapped. Expanding. You were burning through cash, I said. On trucks we didn't need. On marketing schemes that collapsed. On dinners with clients who weren't worth the tab. On personal credit card bills you snuck in as business expenses. You have no idea what you're talking about, he said, but his eyes darted away. I have statements, I replied. And so does my lawyer. And my accountant. And if necessary, the IRS. He stared at me, chest heaving. You'd turn me in? He whispered. Your own son? I'd rather not, I said, but I'm done pretending ignorance is a virtue. He sank into the nearest chair as if his legs had given out. Why are you doing this? He asked. Why now? Why not just let things be? Because I was supposed to die, I said quietly. At least that's what you told me, or what you wished for. Instead, I woke up. And I don't plan to waste the time I've been given letting you treat my life's work like a toy. His eyes filled with something that looked disturbingly like tears. That business is all I have, he whispered. It's my identity, my purpose. You can't just rip it away. Yes, I can, I said. I already have. He stared at me, jaw working. You're doing this to punish me, he said, for what I said in the hospital. You're still bitter. I'm doing this, I answered. Because I finally see you clearly. Not the boy who helped me haul tools. Not the teenager who stayed up with me the night your mother died. The man. The man who looked at his incapacitated father and saw a frozen asset. I leaned forward, ignoring the pain in my ribs. Well then, son, I said, maybe this will teach you to be honest. With yourself, if no one else. He shot to his feet, knocking the chair over. You can't do this, he shouted. I'll sue. I'll take you to court. I'll say you're not competent, that you're brain damaged. You can try, I said. My doctors will be very interested to hear about the notarized documents I've signed this week. The witnesses will testify that I was of sound mind. And if you insist on airing this in court, I'll have to explain why I made the changes. He met my gaze. You'll lose, I added softly. Even if you win. Greg stumbled back like I'd struck him. This is not over, he said. I know, I said. He slammed the door on his way out. It felt like the house shook. I stayed in my chair until my breathing calmed. Then I called the second person on my list. David. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Walker? He said, sounding surprised. Is everything okay? Could you come by this evening? I asked. Just you, not Lisa, and if possible, bring Jamie. He hesitated. Lisa said you're still very tired, he said. She's been handling... David, I interrupted gently. I'm asking you, not her. Silence. We'll be there at 6, he said. When they arrived, the first thing I saw was my grandson's face peeking out from behind his father's legs. Grandpa? Jamie whispered. My throat tightened. Hey, kiddo, I said. Come here and let me see you. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and almost toppled into my lap. I winced as my ribs complained, but I wrapped my arms around him anyway. You got taller, I said into his hair. You got skinnier, he replied with the brutal honesty of children. Mom said you were really sick. I wanted to see you, but she said kids aren't allowed in the hospital. Your mom was misinformed, I said. David shifted, uncomfortable. Sir, he began, if this is about Lisa... It is, I said. And it isn't. Sit down, David. I have some things to show you. Some you're going to wish you never saw, but you need to see them. I'd wrestled with that decision for days. On one hand, I didn't want to blow up my daughter's family. On the other, she'd already lit the fuse. I was just deciding whether to warn the man sitting on the bomb. I sent Jamie to the kitchen with a bowl of ice cream and strict instructions not to eavesdrop. Then I told David everything. Not in the cruel, lurid detail my mind had recorded, but in the broad strokes, the late-night visits, the locked doors, the lies to him about hospital policy, the tone of her voice, the way she said Kyle's name. I didn't want to believe it, I said. But I know what I heard. I know your wife, David. Or at least I thought I did. She may have convinced herself she had her reasons. That doesn't change what she did. He sat there, face pale, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles turned white. This is... a lot, he said hoarsely. I know, I said. If I'd had a way to tell you sooner, I would have. He laughed, a broken sound. You were in a coma, he said. That's one hell of a way for the truth to come out. I don't tell you this to hurt you, I said. I tell you because I've been lying in bed for weeks listening to my children show me who they are. I can't unhear it, and I won't let you stand in the dark if I have any say in it. He scrubbed a hand over his face. I kept wondering why she was so cold lately, he said. Why she always had an excuse not to talk, not to be home, not to come to the hospital with me. I told myself it was grief, stress, work. He looked up, eyes glassy. I didn't want to see what was right in front of me. None of us did, I said softly. We sat in silence for a while. "What are you going to do?" I asked finally. "I don't know," he admitted. "Leave, maybe. Take Jamie. Start over. But I'm a schoolteacher, Tom. I make $48,000 a year. This house, the private school, the extras, they were all Lisa's world. Her salary, her expectations. Without her, I'm just a man with a kid and a paycheck that barely covers rent." "You're a man with integrity and a child who loves you," I corrected. "That's a better starting point than you think." He gave a bitter smile. "It doesn't pay lawyers," he said. "Maybe not," I said, "but something else does." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents Rebecca and I had put together the day before. "You want me to read this?" he asked. "I want you to consider it," I said. He opened it. His eyes scanned the first page, then the second. His brows shot up. "This is," he stammered, "this is a trust?" "In Jamie's name," I said. "With you as guardian and co-trustee. Funded with a portion of my personal savings and some investments you don't know about yet. If you choose to leave, you'll have something solid under your feet. Enough for a down payment on a house, legal fees, school costs. Enough that you won't be stuck in a loveless marriage because you're afraid of being broke." He stared at me. "I can't take this," he whispered. "It's too much." "It's not charity," I said. "It's an investment. In my grandson's future. In yours. And in my own peace of mind." "Lisa will never agree to this," he said. "She doesn't have to," I replied. "It's my money, my decision. You can decline it if you want. Tear those papers up. Keep living as you are. But if you stay with her, I want it to be because you chose forgiveness, not because you were financially trapped." Tears spilled over at last. "You'd do this for me?" he asked. "For you? For Jamie?" I said. "And for the woman I buried 7 years ago. Sarah would haunt me if I let her grandson grow up in a house built on lies without at least giving you a way out." He laughed a little through the tears. "She always did scare me," he said. "Me too," I admitted. We both smiled for the first time. He took a deep breath and looked back down at the papers. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "That's the idea," I replied. Over the next month, dominoes began to fall. Greg's business, deprived of its safety net, shuddered. He'd been propped up for so long he'd forgotten how to stand on his own. When the supplier stopped extending credit, when the bank declined the extra loan, when one of the techs quit to join a competitor, he came back to my house, desperation leaking from every pore. "You have to help me," he said. "No," I answered. "You're really going to let the company die?" "I'm going to let it live or die on the merit of the man currently running it," I said. "You claim to be the real engine behind it. Prove it." He sputtered, cursed, begged. He reminded me of every favor I'd ever done for him. He dredged up memories of Little League and hospital visits and Christmas mornings. "You're my father," he said. "You're supposed to support me." "I did," I said, "for 40 years. I gave you a childhood, an education, a job, a company. I almost gave you my death. You spit on all of it." He stared at me, breathing hard. "You'll regret this," he said finally. "Maybe," I said, "but I'll regret it less than signing away everything to a man who looked at my coma and saw a ledger problem." He left without slamming the door that time. Lisa reacted differently when the truth reached her. At first, she tried denial. "You're confused," she said when I confronted her about Kyle. "It was a coma. You probably dreamed things." "Did I dream his name?" I asked. "His voice? The way you joked about using my room as your secret hotel?" Her face went white. "You don't understand," she said. "David and we were done. At least I thought we were. I was lonely. Kyle was there." "You were married," I said. with a child, and a father in the hospital. Her eyes hardened. "Oh, spare me the moral outrage," she snapped. "You think I don't remember how you worked late every night when we were kids? How Mom cried because she never saw you?" "I was building something," I said. "For all of you." "Well, what you built," she said, "made me realize I'd rather be with someone who's present than someone who's noble and absent." "So you chose a man who meets you in a hospital room while your husband puts your son to bed," I said. "David doesn't understand me," she said. "Kyle does." "David loves you," I replied. "Kyle loves the thrill." Her jaw clenched. "What are you going to do?" she challenged. "Disown me? Cut me out of the will? Punish me because I didn't follow your script?" "Including you in my will assumes you'd care about anything but the money," I said quietly. "I'm not sure that assumption holds." Her eyes widened. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "I would," I said. "In fact, I already have." She stepped back like I'd hit her. "You can't choose them over me," she said. "I'm your daughter." "I'm choosing the people who showed up when I was most helpless," I said. "That includes your husband. It does not include you." She left the house with tears on her face and fury in her eyes. Within 2 months, David filed for divorce. He didn't mention my trust in the proceedings at first. He wanted to keep that separate, clean. But the mere fact that he had a cushion changed everything. He wasn't negotiating from a place of panic anymore. He could say things like, "Jamie's stability is my priority," without worrying about where they'd sleep next month. Rebecca recommended him a family lawyer. In court, Lisa's affair came to light. Kyle, suddenly faced with actual legal consequences instead of secret thrill, vanished from her life as quickly as he'd appeared. The judge, after reviewing everything, granted David primary custody. Lisa walked out of that courtroom with half a salary, a broken reputation, and visitation every other weekend. I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt to see my daughter cry in a hallway while her world collapsed. But there are some hurts a father can't protect his children from, especially when they're the ones who picked up the sledgehammer. The last part of my plan was selfish. I'd promised Sarah, years before the cancer, that we'd retire near the ocean. We'd gone to Hawaii once for our 30th anniversary. Tiny rental condo, second-hand snorkeling gear, the two of us sunburned and happy, and she'd stood on the shore, toes in the foam, and said, "If there's a heaven on earth, it's here." She didn't get that retirement. Coma or no coma, I wasn't going to waste my second chance. So one evening, while Jamie was building a Lego spaceship on my living room floor and David graded papers at the table, I cleared my throat. "How do you guys feel about long flights?" I asked. David looked up confused. "I try not to think about them," he said. "Why?" "I've been doing some thinking," I said, "about this house, this town, the winters I'm too old to shovel through, and the promise I made to my wife." "Sarah?" Jamie asked. "That's right," I said. "Your grandma." "She always wanted to live by the ocean," Jamie said. "Mom told me." "Your mom remembers some things," I said. "What are you saying?" David asked slowly. "I'm saying," I replied, "that I bought a house." David's pen paused. "Where?" he asked. "On Oahu," I said. "About 10 minutes walk from the beach. Nothing crazy. 2 bedrooms, small yard, enough space for an old man and whoever he convinces to visit." Jamie's eyes went round. "Like Hawaii?" he breathed. "For real?" "For real," I said. "You're moving?" David said, stunned. "I am," I said. "And I'd like you two to come with me, at least for a while. The trust can help with logistics, lease here, house there, school transitions. Jamie could learn to surf instead of shovel snow. You could grade papers on a porch instead of in a classroom lit by flickering fluorescents." He stared at me. "I can't just uproot our lives," he said. "Jamie's school, my job." "Jobs exist there too," I said. Kids move schools all the time, and you both deserve more than just surviving." "I can't accept a free life," he protested. "You've already done so much." "It's not free," I said. "You'll be my chauffeur, my chef, my medical alert system. You'll complain about my snoring and make sure I don't fall in the shower. Trust me, it's a full-time job." He laughed despite himself. "And what about Lisa?" he asked. "You taking her too?" "I invited her," I said. "She turned me down, said she couldn't handle being that far from everything." "What's everything?" Jamie asked. "Her favorite hair salon, I guess," I said. Jamie snorted. David rubbed his forehead. "This is insane," he said. "I can't make a decision like this overnight." "You don't have to," I said. "The house will be there either way. You can come for the summer first. Try it. If you hate it, you come back. If you love it, we figure out the rest." He looked at Jamie, who was practically vibrating with excitement. "Can we, Dad?" Jamie begged. "Please? You said adventure is good for the soul. You wrote it on your classroom board." "I hate that you remember everything I say," David muttered. "I'm a teacher's son," Jamie said proudly. I watched them, heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. After the coma, my world had shrunk to hospital ceilings and rehab hallways. Betrayal had clawed chunks out of my trust until I felt hollow. Now, sitting at my battered kitchen table with a 10-year-old who still believed I hung the moon, and a man who'd quietly held our family together while it fractured around him, the hollow spaces felt less like wounds and more like room. Room for something new. 2 months later, we landed in Honolulu. The air slapped me in the face as we stepped out of the airport. Warm, heavy, full of salt and flowers. The taxi ride along the H1 showed glimpses of blue ocean, green mountains, and neighborhoods that looked like postcards. My little house sat on a quiet street lined with plumeria trees. The landlord had cried when I told her we planned to live there full-time. Her husband had built the place in the 70s. "It's good to have a family in it again," she'd said. We started as temporary residents. Summer experiment. Jamie took to the ocean like he'd been born with gills. He wiped out on his first attempt at surfing, came up shouting, "Again!" And I knew we weren't going back soon. David found a job at a local high school teaching history. The pay wasn't much, but his classes were small, his students curious, and his commute involved palm trees instead of snowbanks. I learned to walk the distance from the house to the beach without my cane. Slowly at first, every day, a little easier. We set up a video call for Lisa once a week so she could talk to Jamie. Some weeks she showed up on time, some weeks she didn't. When she did, she plastered on a smile and asked the right questions, but there was a hollowness behind her eyes. "Tell Grandpa I forgive him," she said once, when she thought I was out of earshot. "For what?" David asked. "For abandoning us," she said. I almost laughed. Greg called me twice. The first time he wanted money. "The business is in trouble," he said. "You've made your point, Dad. You taught me whatever lesson you thought I needed. Can you please stop now?" "I didn't do this to teach you a lesson," I said. "I did it to stop letting you use my work as a shield against your own mistakes." "That's the same thing," he snapped. "No," I said. "When you figure out the difference, we can talk." The second time, months later, he just wanted to talk. "How's Hawaii?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Warm," I said. "Wet. Beautiful. You'd hate it." He snorted. "Probably," he said. "I burn easy." He told me bits about his life. He'd downsized the company, let some techs go, sold 2 of the trucks, started doing more calls himself again. It humbled him. It exhausted him. It also seemed to be the first honest work he'd done in years. "I never realized how much you did," he admitted. "I tried to tell you," I said. "You didn't want to listen." "I still think you overreacted," he said. Taking everything, leaving me to flounder. Maybe, I said. But you're still standing, aren't you? Barely. Barely is still standing, I said. He was quiet for a moment. Dad? He said. Yeah? I'm glad you didn't die, he said finally. So am I thought. You have no idea how glad, I replied. We hung up without resolving much. But the conversation felt like a door cracked open, not slammed shut. Now, most evenings, I walk along the beach with my grandson and my former son-in-law. The sand is cool beneath my bare feet. The sun sinks toward the water, painting the sky in colors Sarah would have tried to replicate on the living room walls if she were still here. Jamie runs ahead, chasing waves, shrieking when they catch his ankles. David walks at my pace. Do you ever regret it? He asks me once. Pulling the money? Leaving your son with nothing? Bringing us here? I watched Jamie's silhouette against the setting sun. The boy who, in another life, might have grown up thinking his grandfather was too busy or too broken to care. The man beside me who might have stayed married to a lie because he thought he had no other choice. Regret is a useless thing, I say. I spent too many years of my life working for a future that didn't exist. Now I'm finally living in one that does. That's not an answer, he says. Yes, it is, I say. You're just a history teacher. You're used to neat causes and effects. Life doesn't work like your lesson plans. He smiles. Fair, he says. I stop, breathing in the salt and the faint scent of someone's grill further down the beach. You want to know the truth? I say. That would be nice, he says. I wish I hadn't been in that accident, I say. I wish my son hadn't said what he said. I wish my daughter hadn't done what she did. I wish my wife were alive to see her grandson surfing. But if things had gone any other way, I might still be lying in a bed somewhere, not in a coma, just asleep, to who my children really are, to what I really want. And what do you really want? He asks. I watch Jamie turn toward us, waving, his grin wide enough to split his face. Exactly this, I say. He nods. Then I guess, he says quietly, we're both where we're supposed to be. Later, back at the house, after Jamie's fallen asleep with sand still clinging to his ankles and a seashell clutched in his hand, I sit on the porch alone. The plumeria tree rustles. The ocean murmurs in the distance. I think of the beeping machines, the locked doors, the words that carved holes in me. It would have been better if you had died. Maybe, for them, it would have been. For me? For the man who walked out of the hospital with a body held together by stitches and sheer stubbornness, who sat at his kitchen table and refused to pretend he hadn't heard the truth? No. It was better that I lived, because death would have been easy. Living, really living, meant facing everything I'd heard in that coma and deciding what kind of man I wanted to be with the time I had left. Not the father who turned a blind eye, not the provider who confused money with love, just a grandfather on a porch in Hawaii keeping his promises at last, to his wife, to his grandson, and finally to himself.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.